It is now traditional to introduce Naseeruddin Shah as India's finest actor. So traditional, in fact, that I suspect he's rather bored of that description. So I'm not going to call him India's finest actor, though of course he is. But I'm going to focus on something else, on how innovative he's been. He started out with art cinema, moved to commercial cinema. He's done television, he's anchored cricket shows, and he's done theatre. Many, many things, you know? Many, many different things.
I guess that's what makes life worthwhile, Veer. You got to try everything that you feel you should and attempt to grab at every dream you ever had. So I've had dreams, earliest ones of being an actor. I also had dreams of being a cricketer. I also have dreams of being a filmmaker. I always wanted to be on the stage. So I consider myself pretty blessed that I've had the opportunity to try my hand at all these
Anything you wanted to do that you haven't done so far?
Yeah, I really, really want to make a film.
What kind of film is it, without giving too much away?
To put it in one sentence, the kind of film I'd like to see. I'm not fond of Hindi commercial cinema. I never was. I always considered these films rather silly and they never quite caught my fancy. I was fascinated by the Ealing Studios comedies when I was a child. And I loved westerns always. I loved war movies. Through my childhood, I was exposed to films like Waterfront, Citizen Kane, and all the whole range down to Zorro Rides Again and Mickey Mouse. So movies turned me on from a very early age, and so did cricket. These two passions went side by side.
I don't know whether it's deliberate. You haven't mentioned any Hindi movies.
Well, firstly, we never saw any Hindi movies in school.
Okay.
Secondly, my dad was rather particular about what movies we saw when we went home. And so he would accompany us to see these movies, so we saw them under strict supervision. And so I never really had any heroes in the Hindi film world, I must admit. Though there were actors I liked, people like Motilal and Balraj Sahni and Yaqub. But I can't say that any of the actors of the Hindi cinema inspired me greatly.
No? None of the directors? Because it's now traditional. I've got bored of stars coming and saying, Raj Kapoor, Guru Dutt, this is what I wanted to do.
No, I discovered Guru Dutt and Bimal Roy's movies much later.
Okay, so they weren't formative influences?
No, they were not. The people who were formative influences on me were actors like Anthony Quinn, Paul Muni, Spencer Tracy, Charles Lawton, these kind of people. Not the Clark Gables.
I was about to say that, not the heroes.
Not the heroes, because I didn't identify with those guys. I thought, these are not real human beings. These are photographic tricks.
And Paul Muni is more or less forgotten, but Dilip Kumar, who I once interviewed, cited him as his role model as well.
Paul Muni was perhaps the first actor who made it a business of playing believable characters. He was famous for the quality of his makeup and the quality of the physical attitudes that he took on.
That he became the character.
Became the character, and also played a large number of historical characters.
Were you fascinated by people who played historical characters? Or?
It hasn't struck me that way, but the fact that they were able to recreate characters whose pictures we saw in history books.
And make them come alive.
And make them come alive. That was totally fascinating. Quinn and Tracy fascinated me for another reason, because they were plug uglies kind of thing, you know. They were not heartthrobs.
Did you feel ever that you were not good looking enough to become an actor?
Yes, not only that, I didn't feel that I was either that tall or that well built or that magnetic as people like John Wayne and Gary Cooper and so on. So I never bothered to aspire to that kind of thing.
You're not really interested in commercial cinema. You feel you're not good looking enough to become a leading man. So what keeps you going?
I think it was the desire to be other people. I was an unhappy kid. I had no friends. I was not popular in school. I wasn't good at anything.
Were you like a jerk or something? Or?
I was one of those wallflowers whom nobody notices and nobody pays any attention to. And I think that the teachers in that school made it their job to systematically destroy whatever little confidence I had Because I wasn't good at studies, I wasn't good at games.
Very sort of introverted?
I was withdrawn. I didn't speak much. But not because I had nothing to say, but because I thought I'd make a fool of myself the moment I opened my mouth.
So it was confidence.
It was a question of confidence, and I resent very much the fact that those teachers never bothered to delve a little deeper into what I was all about and find out that how come a child who stands first in English composition and English text fails in English grammar, which
Something
is what was the
clearly
case
wrong,
with me. Yeah. And no one ever bothered. Of course, I'd get 0 in maths, and physics and chemistry just went totally over my head.
The other problem with not having confidence is that an actor requires a degree of unself-consciousness, a degree of confidence. How did you bridge that?
I think that that most people who go into acting because it's a passion are people who've been unhappy children who felt incomplete as children and who despised themselves as children.
You really despise yourself?
Yeah,
That strong?
Yeah, yeah.
How did you feel? What did you feel?
I was convinced that I was foolish and that I was incapable of understanding complicated things like mathematics and physics, which my other classmates
All knew easily.
all knew easily.
And why didn't you make friends?
I was scared. I still hesitate to approach people whom I don't know. I'm pretty terrified of meeting strangers. When I'm on a flight, I invariably shut my eyes and go to sleep or pretend to be asleep so that the guy sitting next to me won't strike up a conversation.
I know the feeling.
So I'm deeply grateful that I could find my vocation, and I could not dare confess this deep desire to anybody except my 2 brothers, who were extremely supportive. But I dared not confess it to my dad, who would have probably beaten the hell out of me if I
So what did you
say
say
that.
when you left school? What did you say you were going to do?
Well, as luck would have it, I failed in class 9.
You failed.
I got 0 in trigonometry. I got 5 out of 100 in physics.
It's just a science subject, sir.
Yeah, and so on. So my dad pulled me out of this place, which he said was too expensive for an idiot like me, and he put me into a school where he thought he could keep an eye on me. And as fate would have it, in this school, which was run by Indian Jesuit priests in Ajmer, a school called St. Anselm's, I got together a group of friends, and we did scenes from The Merchant of Venice, in which I played Shylock, in which I did a close imitation of my all-time favorite actor, Geoffrey Kendall. And suddenly, my whole life changed.
Just because you went to a less prestigious school,
I went,
oddly enough.
Yeah, where I went to a less prestigious.
I want to talk about that change in your life. I want to talk about becoming an actor, but I'm going to have to take a break. But this is getting interesting. Don't go away. Welcome back. I'm talking to Naseeruddin Shah. Okay, at the end of the last segment, your father had pulled you out from this prestigious school where you were very unhappy. You'd gone to St. Anselm's in Ajmer, and you'd found your vocation.
Yes, it was amazing, Veer, how that one night of being on stage for the first time in my life, I remember being completely terrified.
This is Shylock.
Yeah.
Okay.
When the curtain opened, and I was staring into this black space, and all these lights were shining into my face. For like 2 seconds, I felt completely terrified, like on the edge of an abyss. But then I started speaking, and I heard a bit of laughter and a bit of approval. And I can honestly say that that was the first taste of acceptance that I've had in my life. And I immediately felt, this is where I belong.
Really? So that was really the turning point in your life?
It was the turning point in my life. And then I went on to do one play after another in school. Funnily, my grades improved. I made it into the school cricket team.
Confidence.
Yeah, in everything. My whole life changed, and I became quite a cat in that school because of my theatre work.
Really?
And so I can never stop feeling this immense gratitude to the theatre. And thus there has never been a parting of ways between theatre and myself.
Did movies seem a natural progression?
No, I never, I didn't think I'd make it into movies. I knew that I wanted to act.
Why did you think you wouldn't make it? The usual
because
problem,
the usual looks, yeah. And then I started seeing Hindi movies because I got a bit of independence there. So I saw every single Hindi movie around. Most of all the Dara Singh movies of that time, which I loved.
The stunt films, really?
Yeah, I loved those movies. They would make me laugh.
Rustam-e-Hind, Tarzan Comes to Delhi.
Tarzan Comes to Delhi, and King Kong, and Thief of Baghdad, and all these totally ludicrous movies. I was never taken in by Hindi movies completely. I found them incredible and not very convincing. The people or the situations or the things they said were not very convincing.
And the mid-60s is not